Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
All right, everybody. Hi, it's Ashley again. Last week, we talked with Dr. Marcus Stewart and Dr. Heather Bryan, who are the principal and assistant principal of Richland High School. It's also a middle school. And they talked about the way that they set up a flex block at their school and kind of the way they use that to help with their professional learning communities. And it got to be very in-depth discussion, so we cut it off there and we're finishing the rest of that episode this week. Today, they're going to talk a little bit about the way that they boosted their AP program. We're going to talk about how they get their students interested and connected to careers. And they're going to talk about how they keep their high expectations for teachers. So with that, I'm going to get us to our episode.
Let's talk a little bit about this AP growth that you've had, because that's something that really stands out. Mr. Stewart, can you talk a little bit about the growth that you've seen in two ways: AP achievement, but also AP as a program in your school? How has that evolved over the past few years?
Well, over the last couple of years, it's been great to watch because the students they're becoming more invested. And I think that goes back to setting a vision of what we're here for, what our purpose is, and what we want for each student when they leave as graduates of Richland High School. And again, that goes back to, one, empowering your staff to do what they are trained and what their strengths are. And before I dive into that, we'll actually let Dr. Bryan dive into that because in our wheelhouse, I do want to say, building capacity is key to this endeavor. Like, teachers can see through and through everything that we're doing with Flex, with all of our actions, how we're keeping the students at the center and how we keep teachers right around that nucleus, because I'll just call it what it is. I mean, it's a great recruitment tool, and we know how competitive it is to lure teachers or try to get teachers into your school. Well, if we can offer something that no other school offers, we're going to get better teachers. We're going to get the best of the best because they see that opportunity for growth within Richland High School. They see, okay, there I can go as a teacher, but I can gain experience being around the instructional coach, which helps me grow in a curriculum aspect, or I can assist the administrators doing these projects. We have a leadership development institute within the school that we, provide smaller administrative tasks for teachers. And in turn, we give them like hours. We document the hours and we provide them like a certificate for the things that they have contributed to Richland High School. So it has to be intentional, and you have to have that vision and that long-term goal. And more than anything, you have to let your administrators work. And I take my hat off to Dr. Bryan for that. When we had our initial conversation after her hire, it was like, I want you to dream it up and make it happen. And by God, she made it happen, as you can see.
Okay. So, I do. Dr. Bryan, tell us about AP achievement and what you've done, what the school has done over the past few years to build that.
Okay, so the AP growth is a bit of a passion project. I was an AP history teacher by trade for a long time, and so I really believe in what the power of AP can be for students, college bound or not college bound. And so I started with our data, and I think it really just speaks volumes. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but in 2022, we had 41 students taking AP classes. We had 41 exams, and 7% of those scored a 3 or higher, which is college credit. So 7%. In 2024, we had 52 students, and 44% of those students got college credit.
That's huge.
Things. A lot of that has to do with offering more courses, targeting what courses students want to take, and looking at course progressions. So if you're familiar with College Board and you go through their course exam descriptions and then you read what are students being asked to do in exams, there are similarities and certain courses line up. For example, AP Euro and AP World and AP US have a very similar exam design. different contents, same exam design. AP Euro and AP US have similar timelines. So those courses tend to bounce off each other well. So we integrated that course actually with the same teacher that teaches AP US. So essentially, she would have them as 10th graders, training them on those skills, and then carry them on into AP US in 11th grade. They have been trained. She knows them. They know each other. There is something to be said about looping, but it's a smaller group. So it definitely worked for our kids. And then it has been kind of tweaking the math part. That has been the hardest. We have a lot of success in junior high math, but we were struggling to find which AP math best fit our students. And so we've kind of switched that around, looking again next year about what that looks like. But again, kind of going to the kids and seeing this is what's really going to work. Jumping into 25, 26, we have gotten a pilot for AP cybersecurity. So we're one of the schools in the country that were granted that. And that is under College Board's AP Career Kickstart. And it's a 2-year program. We will be offering year 1 next year. But students not only have the opportunity to get college credit in these courses, they also can finish with having actual credentials to work in an IT department. So we're not just looking for our kids that are going to college. We're also looking for our kids who may be looking vocational route. But to make high school kids successful in AP, you really have to start at the beginning. So we have the unique experience that we're 7-12. So making students ready in 10th grade starts in 7th grade. The expectation is that every kid can do the work. So we have to keep those expectations as high as possible. And that way they all have the opportunity. Not just, oh, well, this kid seems really smart, so we'll throw him in there. They're all really smart. So we just have to keep that expectation high, and then we have a larger amount of students who want those courses. And I'll have to say another key point was teachers. Who's teaching the AP courses? The dynamic personalities, drawing kids in, making them want to take these courses, because not all high school students want to be at school. So what teachers draw those kids in and really kind of want them to be there?
You said a lot of extremely powerful things in the way you set up that system. And I just want to zero in on a little bit. First of all, you're almost creating like a major, right, for certain kids, and saying, if you're into this, or you're finding the things that groups of kids are into, and pulling together clusters of courses that have similar structures so that they transfer. I'm very specific about transfer of knowledge and transfer of skills and understanding how the AP courses do that. And then I heard you say, well, with that, can you talk about social studies. How does that apply to can you give us some more examples? Because that seems like a fascinating way. I've never heard that before in terms of an AP program. Choosing programs that have transferable skill sets so that you get bigger bang for your buck with each course. Maybe I don't know enough about it, but like, can you give other examples of what, for people who might be doing this in their schools, of how you do that?
So I can probably speak the best to social studies because that is my realm. The reason I kind of went the direction actually goes back to when I was in the classroom. I taught AP US, and we were looking at offering more history classes. And so I knew AP Euro had the same course design. And I said, well, why don't we offer that to 10th graders and 12th graders who may want that credit? Because in Mississippi, our deal with IHL, histories, if you score a 3, that's 1 semester. But if you score a 5, that's 2 semesters. So I had some kids who made a 4 in U.S. history and really wanted to take another course so that they had their prereqs done. They had those 2 histories done. So when I was in the classroom, I taught those 2 courses. And then I was in the trenches. I saw exactly, these are the exact skills different content, and I saw a lot of student growth. So when I moved into administration and we were looking at realigning this, I really just met with the AP US history teacher and said, look, I know this is not your content wheelhouse, but you already know these skills. You know how to teach these essays. You know how to do this. What are your thoughts? And kind of just shared my experience. She was all in. So much so that she is even going to teach AP government next year. So which is a different course design. So she is kind of tracking these kids and preparing them all the way through. And these students could get done with her and have a lot of college credit. And being in title school, our students aren't paying for their AP exams. So every 3 they make is a free college course that they just earned.
Right.
So we talk a lot about that with our teachers and making sure that they're embedding the College Board curriculum. Because I know sometimes it's like, well, I don't want to teach to a test, or I don't want to do that. But this is money in their pockets. This is opportunity in their pockets. And those curriculums are built so that you can get those students ready. So I can speak more on social studies, but the cybersecurity has 2 points. It has a certification at the end. We're also going into the AP seminar class next year, which is part of the capstone, AP capstone, which has a seminar and a research component. This has a project-based part to the exam, and students have some choice in what they're researching and what they're presenting. And when I've gone and observed teachers teach this course, these are real skills that you use in the everyday world, having to present, having to research a topic, having to determine, are these sources accurate? Where do I find accurate information? And that is a skill that everybody needs, no matter what they plan on doing. So it's really just pinpointing what's best.
So go ahead.
As is that technical writing that they learn in AP World that transfers to AP US, AP European History, even English, right? That concise writing style, and then in their life, right? Sounds like a potential teacher PLC, how to help your kids write, using that style.
And then the cybersecurity, it seems like you're asking yourself, how can we, even in our college, motivated students, build in career relevant instruction? You're trying not to separate. These are our college track. These are our work track. But at college is part of the work track, right? Everybody is career. Everyone's going to have a job eventually, most people, but not everyone's going to go to college, but they're not separate, right? They're not separate. How many students are in your cybersecurity course?
So the pilot starts for the 25-26 school year. So I'm not exactly sure how many we have. And I'll have to say, getting that pilot and finding the teacher was a big moment, because we had to apply. We had very short time. And at first it was just tagged to me. I'm like, this is not me. And so we actually found a teacher who builds computers and does all of this. She's very reserved, but mentioned it in conversation with me that this is what she does in her spare time. And I said, well, let me bring you this curriculum from AP. Will you read over it and tell me what it means? And she was reading through it and she said, this is amazing. This is exactly what I like to do. And I said, great. Would you like to teach this course? And so she was so excited, and she really blossomed from a very reserved teacher to talking to me about how excited she is to go to this class and pulling kids in. And it was great to see that moment in a teacher.
That teacher giving teachers an opportunity to do what they want, and giving kids opportunities to do something, having those two meet at the middle is exciting. But it took work on your end to research it, to find it, to be thinking about it. So that leads us into career-connected learning. So you're a 6-12 or 7-12? 7-12. So talk to us about how you've connected students to real world experiences at your school? You've got this flex block, so that provides you some time. So you can talk about how you use that, but anything else you do, because that's we talk about career pathways and career connectedness and student motivation. And how do we get students interested in school? Well, one key component is showing how what they're learning is going to help them be somebody when they grow up. So talk a little bit about that and how that has looked at your school.
Okay. So back in 23-24, we received a career coach, and this was done through the CMPDD, which is the Central Mississippi Planning and Development District, in association with Hines Community College. So we received this career coach in 23-24. And through that acquisition, we had an opportunity to establish basically the position. Like, we didn't have many parameters of what that looked like. So basically, we were able to rewrite or write the duties according to the needs of Richland High School. And we hired a person who had a extensive background as far as college and career readiness went. So she was already familiar with the processes and everything as it related to the position, but she just didn't know how to tie the two together. So we sat down and established these parameters. And since then, the position has taken off. She's done things like allowed the students opportunities to job shadow. We had a lot of success with that. I think just this year alone, she had 24 students that received experience job shadowing in different organizations, such as the University of Mississippi Medical Center, the Richland Upper Elementary School, the Rankin County School District's and Industrial Technology Department. So a lot of different agencies and a lot of businesses of the Richland community and surrounding areas. She took students on field trips, which gave them career exposures. They went to the Siemens Corporation, which is here in Richland. They toured the plant. They visited Jackson State University E-Commerce Center.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the job shadowing? What does that look like? And what have you seen how do students respond to that?
Well, essentially, Miss Anderson, who was the career coach, she would touch base with these different businesses to align or set up these job shadowing opportunities. And students actually go to these businesses and they spend time working one-on-one with the person of their choosing. So say, for instance, at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, there are tons of jobs there. She will align with their HR department. And if it's something in, nursing, she can get a student in to shadow a nurse for a day and, just see firsthand what it looks like and what comes along with the job, what the expectations look like, and being frontline with the nurses.
Excellent. And what kind of feedback do you get from students from those experiences?
Outstanding. And not only the students, the businesses, they reach back out to us and touch base about the experiences they've had with the students. And she's actually had students to go on to receive placements from those job shadowing opportunities. So there are tons of things that come from this position. Another thing that she does, she met with each senior. And as part of these meetings, she talked to the students about career explorations. The students had to write resumes. The students went through mock interviews. She helped them fill out college applications, the FAFSA applications, housing applications, military recruitment letters of recommendation, scholarship essays. She works with the students through any regard, anything career, college related, or even military related. She makes time to work with these different students. But as I stated earlier, she helps students obtain positions in Empire Trucking, that's a local business here in Richland, Mississippi, St. Dominic's, and the Penske Oil Service Center here in Richland. We had 16 other students that were placed in part-time jobs in local businesses like Levi, Gap, Marshalls, Noop, Starbucks, and places like that. She worked along with our career and college and career readiness teachers and the work-based learning teachers. And they basically came up with a document to help ensure that all students are accounted for in 3 major areas. She helped them find and identify their top 3 training or college options. After that, they had to identify their financial strategy. So how would they be able to finance those particular areas that they are interested in? And finally, she established a job shadowing contact. So basically she tried to walk them through 3 different steps to help to ensure that they would be prepared or they would have more insight into the career that they wanted to pursue before they found themselves wasting time or investing time in something that they really didn't want to do.
That sounds like someone we might need to talk to in more depth, Jason. This person has really taken on that role and done a lot of, I wouldn't say not necessarily innovative, but like she's done all the things that you're supposed to do to help kids see what the career spectrum is.
Right.
And anticipate every barrier.
Yeah.
Streamlining everything so students are getting that exposure and they're seeing we're not missing anything when it comes to students. And not just setting a vision, but it's okay, how will you finance? How are you going to pay for this vision? And do you actually know what this job that you're pursuing, do you actually know what it is, that you're after?
What about building into academics, career? If I'm a 8th grade social studies teacher or a 9th grade math teacher, is that something you talk about or you work with teachers on, sort of incorporating and embedding career interest or alignment into instruction?
More so on the higher level. So our 11th, 12th grade classes for sure, because of course they have the CCR classes, college and career readiness class. And through those classes, they work a lot on those soft skills. They work on resume writing. They fine tune all the things that the career coach overseas, if that makes sense. And they work hand in hand, and through guest speakers and things of that sort, they're allowed to see what lies ahead of them. And also once a year, we have a career fair. And on that particular day, we invite, last year alone, we had, I think, 50 to 55 different schools and businesses in the building. So all of the students 9 through 12 were allowed to rotate through, just to touch base, just to see what these different careers and, what's out there basically, and start to make contact with these different people. Because again, if you're not in grade, it won't be long before you're out here in the real world. So, that's probably the earliest that we embedded. But as far as 8th grade, we took them on a field trip where they were able to go to this technology center so they can see what lies ahead of them or what's out there in regards to technology. But high school is where it really comes into play. And another thing, you mentioned Flex Block in college and career readiness. We were able to offer a cybersecurity certification through our Flex Block. So we're able to, it was done through a partnership with Cisco. And it basically taught them things like network security, ethical hacking, and cyber laws. And again, they were able to walk away with a certification after completion of that cybersecurity academy.
It's our last sort of topic, which is this idea of high expectations for all teachers and students. And that's a term that we use all the time, high expectations, but it has a huge impact. And so I'm wondering, what are some ways as a leadership team, what are some expectations, like common expectations that you've set for your staff? And how have you sort of helped them implement those things in their classrooms so that they feel successful?
When we started this current school year, the 24-25 school year, with teacher-led sessions, where one of the sessions was establishing high expectations. And it came from a teacher that she's respected throughout the school, and she gets great results every single year. And it kind of snowballed from there. It was something we kept in front of them, in PLCs and things like that. It was something that we provided feedback on. It was just that expectation of, this is what we want. Our kids deserve the best, and we're not going to give them excuses. Although we're a Title I school with, high poverty levels, we're not going to let that be an excuse. We're going to give our students experiences and opportunities so we can set them apart, but at the same time, we set them up for success.
What does it look like? What does high expectations look like at Richland High School?
Well, one, it starts with literacy. Every day, every class, we want to see speaking, reading, writing. We want to see those things on full display. We have our code of conduct as far as our discipline is tied in. Everything is tied into one system. If students are not performing as they should, or if their behavior is not up to par, we have structures in place to help correct those behaviors. We don't allow them just to roam freely and do what they want and reap the benefits. Our intention is to teach the behaviors that we want to see on display within in the hallways, and that trickles up to the teachers. The expectation is across the board of what we want to see. And we model it, and we expect to see it in the teachers, and we expect to see it in the students, from timeliness to being invested, from 720 to 306. We want your all. And that's our motto. That's what we operate by.
Heather, can you just talk a little bit about some of the things you do to help support, follow up, coach teachers in that?
Yes, and I'll say Dr. Stewart and I have a similar mentor. We have the same mentor who's one of his common phrases is inspect what you expect. And we really believe in that. And I tell our teachers, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And similarly, when I was in the classroom, I would tell my students, everything that you write, I'm going to read, because I asked you to do it. And so when I ask teachers to do something, I think it's really important to go back and check that they're doing it. And it holds me accountable as well, because as an administrator, we're running all over the place. And if we don't set guidelines for ourselves or say that we're going to sit down and take this time to do something is always going to come up. There's always a to be put out somewhere else. And so you really have to make sure you have those put into place. So some of the ways that I kind of inspect what we're expecting teachers to do is we have a common lesson plan template. This coming up school year will be year 3 in that template, and that derived from the CIR saying we needed some type of unified plan. So the first 2 years, it was fully built into Google Sheets. Teachers asked for a Google Doc version. So 25, 26, they have the option between which they like better. It was easy to transfer that over. So we have a common lesson plan. Teachers at first were not thrilled by it, but once they realized they didn't have to turn those lesson plans in, that they were shared with us, anybody who came in their classroom could pull them up. And the way I present it is I want to know what's going on. I don't want to make assumptions about what I'm seeing, because that's not always really what I'm seeing. So if you have a lesson plan that is there and I can read, I'm like, oh, well, I came in and this is what they're doing. I missed this really cool thing. I'll try to hit it, next block or what have you. And they also, beyond the first part of school, their lesson plans don't have due dates. We just ask that they're up to date. So I kind of keep a running reminder to check lesson plans once a week. It's not always the same day of the week. And if it's a Wednesday, I'm just looking for Wednesday. I'm not looking for Thursday. I'm not looking for Tuesday. I'm looking at Wednesday. And I'll go in sometimes and there's Wednesday, but there isn't a Monday, Tuesday. Okay, I came for Wednesday. I'm not making comments on Monday, Tuesday. I'm going to drop a little note. It did take people some time to get used to that, because I asked them to do it. I went in there. I did it. The only time there's a true due date is by the first day of school. They're asked to have 2 weeks of plans in there, just so we kind of have an idea of what we're going to do. And for the past 2 years, on day 1, I don't leave the building until I've checked every single person's lesson plans. And then I make a comment on everybody's plan, and then I email those who did not have any plans. I very much subscribe to Todd Whitaker's belief that you only email those that you need to, which is a really time-consuming process, actually. I try not to send out mass emails about things that weren't completed. So I have a spreadsheet where I document lesson plans. I have a spreadsheet where I document if people uploaded or put something in FlexBlock, and then I only email those people. Just send a BCC, hey, as a gentle reminder, you were asked to have this done by this time. Please make sure you go in and do that. And then I keep a spreadsheet of who's been contacted and when they've been contacted. And the first year, I didn't have all of that documentation, and I went a little crazy. not enough organization to keep up with for me. And so this past year, I had it all in a spreadsheet for both of those things. But before I started doing it, I told the teachers, I went through my exact process. This is what I do. This is what it looks like. You're only getting an email. It takes me 15 minutes every day to check FlexBlock and write down who didn't do it and send you an email. And then they could kind of see I had a lot less people continuing not to do things because they realized how much time it was taking somebody else to double check. And it's just knowing that you're doing something and somebody is actually holding you accountable for it. And then one other thing is that I mentioned the teacher developing a PD plan for FlexBlock for next year. She came and she spoke to me and was asking about what kind of support we were going to give. And I said, I think you need to write admin expectations, what you think that we need to be doing to hold everybody accountable, because part of the plan is for peer observations. So how are we going to hold people accountable? And I said, it needs to be something that we can do as administrators that's feasible within a reasonable time limit. Do you just tell me how you think that we can hold people accountable? Because I want to give these teachers ownership, but she's right in saying that there needs to be accountability on our side as well to make sure teachers are following through.
Another thing with that is we're able to, so when people are not living up to those expectations, we can do sessions through the FlexBlock where if it's your failure to submit your lesson plans, your classroom management, things of those sorts, we can bring teachers in during FlexBlock to have with them to correct those deficiencies as well.
Sounds like you're inspecting what you expect and also creating, you mentioned you have a similar mentor. It's where you're going to become mentors for other leaders. You have a leadership pipeline that you're growing. I can tell just through the discussion, and you're going to be producing or probably have already produced some assistant principals and principals that we're going to be interviewing 5 years from now. And they're going to be saying they have a common mentor. And Dan Rock and I are going to be like, yeah, we know who that is.
Oh, you're from the Stewart Bryan School,
right?
Of
leadership. Seriously, super impressive shared leadership. I can see why hopefully you don't have the same trouble recruiting that other schools have, right? Like I can see teachers would want to come be a part of this and students would want to become a part of this.
Yeah, both.
I can see why you're a Pacesetter school. You're an innovative. You got the innovation grant for making this FlexBlock school-wide. You're a school that people need to pay attention to and to learn from and model their practices from.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been really helpful. And I hope that people come to your session at the conference. And if they have already been to your session and are listening to this, they forward this to their school so that they can listen to it and learn about all of the really interesting projects that you're doing and all the ways. It's not just one thing that's impacted. It's not one silver bullet or one strategy or practice protocol. It's all of these things working together. So we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing all the amazing progress you all continue to make.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.